The stars are right, and that means it's time for another episode of The Whisper in Darkness. I'm your host, the Man from Lang. Thank you very much for joining me today. On this episode, I am reviewing the Mystic cards from the Unspeakable Oath, the second Mythos pack in the Path to Carcosa cycle. As you may have noticed, I've split up the reviews of the cards in this Mythos pack into 5 parts to make it a little easier for you to digest, so you can take your time and view the cards at your leisure. So make sure you check out the reviews for the other classes. There are spoilers throughout if you care about that sort of thing. If you enjoy what you hear, maybe consider subscribing. So with that in mind, let's see what the designers have in mind for Arkham Horror's Mystics. The first card in the first Mystic card in the pack is Storm of Spirits. This event costs 3 resources and has willpower and combat skill icons. It has the spell trait and the game text Fight. This attack uses willpower instead of combat. If you succeed, instead of its standard damage, this attack deals 2 damage to each enemy at your location, and any additional damage is dealt to the attacked enemy. If the Skull, Cultist, Tablet, Elder Thing, or Tentacle symbol is revealed during the attack, deal 1 damage to each investigator at your location. Now, this card was originally spoiled by Peter and Frank over at the Drawn to the Flame podcast. And if you're new to the Arkham Horror LCG and you haven't had a chance to check out their work, make sure you head over to www.drawntotheflamepodcast.blogspot.com and give them a listen. They produce some great content. I think Peter just released his first look impressions of the cards from the Phantom of Truth Mythos pack, which is either released this week or next week. I think it's next week in the United States. And I will have that review hopefully coming shortly. On to Storm of Spirits. It's the second card in the Mythos pack that really could help investigators do battle with a swarm of enemies, really the likes of which we've never seen in the game before, and I think it's a really good one. There are very few cards that are effective against swarms. Trench Knife is one possibility, Dynamite Blast is another. Storm of Spirits is cheaper than Dynamite Blast and much less likely to end up killing everyone if you need to cast it at a location where the investigators have hunkered down to weather the storm of the swarm. Storm of Spirits is a spell card, which means you can search for it with the Arcane Initiate. You can boost the skill test with Grounded from the Echoes of the Past Mythos pack, or Spirit Athame from the Path to Carcosa Deluxe box. Or you can cast it for free with Uncage the Soul. It also happens to be an event, so it's automatically worth a look in a Safina Rousseau deck if you'd like to be able to cast it multiple times per game. Now, there are a few interesting tricks that you can pull off with Storm of Spirits that aren't immediately obvious. For example, if you are stuck at a location with multiple enemies, you can pick off, you get to pick the enemy that you can attack. This can work to your advantage if you're staring down a swarm of rats and the Royal Emissary in Curtain Call, for example. You can target the swarm of rats with the Storm of Spirits, so you get to use the fight value of the rats instead of the Royal Emissary. So the difficulty of the test will be 1, and if you succeed, you get to kill the rats and do 2 damage to the Emissary, and really that's pretty cool. The beauty of Storm of Spirits is that if you happen to fail the test while targeting an enemy engaged with another investigator, you only will do 1 point of damage to that investigator. This trick also works if you happen to be stuck at a location with an enemy like the Swarm of Rats and an aloof enemy like the Man in the Pallid Mask. You can't target the Man in the Pallid Mask with the Storm of Spirits, but you can certainly target the Swarm of Rats. And if you succeed, you'll kill the rats and do 2 damage to the Man in the Pallid Mask, possibly softening him up for the killing blow later in the turn. Now, Safina Rousseau and Jim Culver can take this 1 step further if they include a copy or 2 of Double or Nothing in their decks. That's an event. That's the skill card from the Dunwich Legacy expansion, Safina can target the swarm of rats and play double or nothing, which would double the difficulty of the skill test to a measly 2. And if she passes the test, she would do with her she'd be using her willpower skill, which would be at least 5 at that point. She'll double the damage to 4, killing the rats and the Royal Emissary in one shot. Of course, if you pull a special symbol and the test is successful, each investigator at your location will take 2 damage, but really that's a small price to pay if you manage to take out multiple enemies at once. If you're having difficulty navigating the main path in the Devourer below after Act 1B, a Storm of Spirits and a double or nothing certainly has the potential to clear up that situation very nicely. Storm of Spirits is a great addition to the Mystic Arsenal. You can do a tremendous amount of damage with it in solo or multiplayer, clearing out a location in one fell swoop. The fact that you get to target the weakest enemy at the location and still damage the tougher enemies is just gold. 3 resources is a little on the pricey side in a class that has a lot of expensive spells, but I think if swarms of low health enemies become a thing in the Arkham Horror LCG, I think Storm of Spirits is really going to make short work of them. The second Mystic card in the pack is the level 1 version of Book of Shadows from the core set. It's a 3-cost asset with an intellect skill icon and the item and tome traits. It takes up a hand slot and it has the game text action. Exhaust Book of Shadows and spend 1 resource. Add 1 charge to a spell asset you control. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is the first time we've seen a lower level version of one of the upgrades from the core set. Unfortunately, the level 3 version of Book of Shadows sees almost no play, and for good reason. Frankly, it's just a terrible card. First of all, it costs 4 resources. Second, you need to take 2 actions before you reap any of the benefits. And the benefits really aren't all that impressive. Like, why would you spend 3 experience points, 4 resources, and 2 actions to add 1, yes, 1, charge to your Shriveling spell, when you could simply play a second copy of Shriveling for 3 resources and gain 4 charges? It doesn't make any sense. It's very slow. If you're worried about running out of ammunition in the middle of a fight, I think you're much better off spending 2 experience points to pick up a couple copies of the Spirit Athame from the Path to Carcosa Deluxe box, or even a copy of Song of the Dead from the Miskatonic Museum Mythos pack, which will give you 5 more charges to fire away with. The only thing I really like about the level 3 version of Book of Shadows is the extra arcane slot that it provides you, but I don't really feel like paying 3 experience points and 4 resources just for that. The level 1 version of Book of Shadows costs 1 less resource, but you give up the willpower skill icon and the extra arcane slot. Worse, it now costs you a resource to trigger its ability. Jeez, let me get this straight. So now it's going to cost you 1 experience point, 2 actions, and 4 resources to add 1 charge to a spell. Besides the experience point discount, how is this better? I feel like the designers took a bad card and they somehow made it worse, and I honestly didn't think that was possible. Normally I'm pretty positive about the cards in this game, but this one really just rubs me the wrong way for some reason. It just seems awful. Now, there is one investigator who might consider playing this card, and that's Daisy. In fact, I think there's really only one Daisy build that would even consider it, and that's the spell slinging version that uses cards like Higher Education, Scrying, Shriveling, Holy Rosary, and Blinding Light. Now, Daisy can't play the level 3 version of Book of Shadows because it costs too many experience points, but she can play this one. Book of Shadows is a tome, so Daisy can use her special ability to take an additional action during her turn. The question is does Daisy really want to? I mean, it's going to cost you 1 experience point, 1 action, and 4 resources to add 1 charge to a spell. That's still really inefficient. Besides, Daisy has access to far better tomes in this game. I'd much rather play a tome like the Old Book of Lore, which you could use to, turn after turn to search for another copy of the spell you need, rather than play the Book of Shadows and try and add one charge to a spell you have in play. The level 3 version of Book of Shadows is, frankly, just a bad card, and the level 1 version doesn't really improve on it. In fact, I think it could be even worse, which is really saying something. I think this card is far and away the dud of this Mythos pack, and it really belongs in your binder and not in your deck, which is a shame, because I think overall the designers have done a great job with the cards in this game, but for some reason this one just it doesn't do it for me. That's going to do it for my look at the Mystic cards in the Unspeakable Oath. It's a mixed bag for the Mystics in this pack. Storm of Spirits is a great addition to the Mystic card pool that's going to see a lot of play in a variety of decks. It's going to be extremely useful if swarms of low health enemies become a thing in this game. In the meantime, it's still capable of clearing out a location or softening up a group of tougher enemies for the killing blow. On the other hand, the level 1 version of Book of Shadows is simply quite bad. It's woefully inefficient, and it's really not worth the experience points, resources, or actions. Daisy can use this version, true, but Daisy has much better cards to spend her experience points on this thing. I think the less we speak of the Book of Shadows, the better off we'll be. That's going to do it for my review of the Mystic cards. If you enjoyed this review, I'd appreciate it if you could leave me a thumbs up. It helps out the channel a great deal. Do you agree or disagree with my look at these cards? Do you like Book of Shadows? Please leave a comment down below and let me know if you've had any success with it. Make sure you hit that subscribe button to be notified of when I release future content. If you'd like to contact me, I can be reached at manfromlang@gmail.com. I'm also on Twitter @manfromlang. Until the stars are right, keep your shotgun close and your elder sign closer. Take care out there, and happy investigating.